What's going on, guys? Welcome back, and today I'm going to be doing another video. Now, in case you're wondering why the audio quality is maybe different and why I'm using a different camera quality than I usually do, I'm using my mom's phone today because my phone, there's some crap going on with my phone, and the camera isn't working properly, so I'm going to be using my mom's phone. It's not the greatest quality, I know, but, you know, I think it works fine, and you probably won't be seeing as many videos from me soon until I get this kind of fixed up, but I'll be doing as many videos as I can. But anyway, today, I know you guys love my MCU reviews, and I love talking about the MCU, but I've just gotten kind of tired of it. Not tired of the MCU, but tired of talking about it. And now that Endgame has come out and we've gotten the end of a very large story, I thought it was time to take a break. So today I'm going to be going through all the MCU movies that I haven't talked about in a very quick lightning round sort of style. And I know a lot of people don't really like some of these movies, and these are some that some consider not as the best. There might be some unpopular opinions in this movie, Guardians of the Galaxy, but, you know, so there will probably be some unpopular opinions in this video, but anyway, let's get into it. Oh, the first one, I'm looking at my list here. The first movie that we have to talk about, this is the one that everyone loves to rag on, Thor: The Dark World. Now, I am going to warn you, not all these movies I've seen recently, in like the last year or so. I think the last time I saw Thor: The Dark World was over a year ago, and it's not really memorable. So now the main criticism I hear thrown at this movie is it's boring. I don't find it boring. That's actually what I don't find it to be. I find it to be pretty fun and enjoyable while I'm watching it. But I've said in the past, the way I judge a Marvel film is how much it sticks with me, how much I'm drawn to rewatch it. And whenever I ask, my mom about, what do you remember about this movie? She doesn't remember anything about it. And that's the sign of, I think, not a great film, is when you don't remember it. So I think it's a fine movie. It's a fine piece of entertainment, but it doesn't stick with you. It doesn't really have any messages or themes in it. And I understand why people think it's the weakest of the MCU. I don't find it boring. I find it the opposite of boring. I just find it not exciting, really, at all. But, It's a fine movie. Endgame has improved it from an emotional angle. I love Frigga's funeral, Thor's mother's funeral, because it's not undercut with humor, which is a problem I have with some Marvel films, where they undercut a lot of the emotion with humor, and they don't do that in this film. It's also a problem I had with How to Train Your Dragon 2, where Hiccup's dad dies, and they have a similar burial, but Hiccup makes a joke immediately after. If you've seen How to Train Your Dragon 2, you know what I'm talking about. But in Thor 2, they actually don't undercut Frigga's funeral with humor, which I really appreciate. So in the end, Thor: The Dark World, Endgame has improved it. It's not one of the best MCU films. I think it's overly hated, but it's not a great film. It doesn't really stick with me. It's not really memorable, but it's fine, and I think it's more coherent in its narrative than something like Civil War, which is kind of an incoherent mess at this point, in terms of the story it wants to tell. But, moving on from Thor: The Dark World, we have Guardians of the Galaxy, the first film. Now, here's the unpopular opinion. I don't love Guardians of the Galaxy 1. I love Volume 2, which we'll talk about later. But I just never had much to say about it. My sister and I watched this for the first time, when it came out a few years ago, on DVD or on Netflix, I think. And it was a really fun experience for the two of us, and I always remember that experience of watching the film with her. A lot of my siblings have gone off to university, and they've gone off to do a lot of other things, so it's those kind of memories that I need to remember. So that's the best memory I have with this film. Other than that, I don't really love it. It's not memorable. That's the thing, that's not the only thing I judge these movies by, but I judge them by being memorable, and I don't really remember much about this movie. Guardians 2 has a lot of themes that stick with me, but at this point, it's one of those movies where it feels like part of the routine and not really a great film anymore. People hold it in really high regard, and I don't think it's that great. I think it's just kind of okay. It's honestly, I think, on the same level of something like, I'm trying to think of a mediocre, okay MCU movie, honestly, I think it's probably on the same level of Thor: The Dark World, just for me, in my opinion. It's not really a great film, or the same level as, I think, both the Thor movies. it's kind of mediocre to me. It's not that exciting. Like, it's not a negative experience while I'm watching it, and it's more memorable than those movies. So I think it's maybe slightly better. It's slightly above those, in my opinion. But just the way these characters have been developed since then has been so much more interesting than what they do in this film. Same with, like, you know, characters like Nebula. She feels like a completely different character in this movie, and not in the natural character progression way. She feels completely out of character in this movie from what she becomes in the future films. And it's just, I don't love it as much as everyone else. Like, there are some great emotional beats with Peter Quill and his mother at the beginning, and going back to the end when Gamora reaches out her hand and says, "Peter, take my hand," and Peter remembers that moment. That's really good stuff, but I think Guardians 2 sticks with you more, or at least it sticks with me more. So Guardians 2, or Guardians 1, is not a negative experience. It was a fun experience, and I will remember the first time I watched it, but I don't love it. That's just my opinion. I don't hate it. It's not a negative experience, but it's just kind of mediocre to me, with more thought back on it. Then we have Ant-Man. Now, I really enjoy Ant-Man. I think I like it maybe a little bit more than Guardians 1. It's not really memorable. The villain's kind of bland, but the characters, like Scott Lang's character, is really fun to watch. I think Ant-Man and the Wasp spices things up more with more fun and, like, bright characters than the first Ant-Man. But, you know, it's a fun experience, and actually, you know, thinking back on it, I think it's on the same level of something like Guardians of the Galaxy. It's not great. It's not bad at all, I don't think. Like, none of the MCU movies are really bad to me. They're just, none of them really reach any extraordinary heights, except Infinity War and some other ones, but mainly Infinity War. Like, I wouldn't say any of the MCU movies are, like, one of my favorite movies except Infinity War, honestly. But yeah, so that's really wrapping it up on Ant-Man. I don't really have much to say about it. I like Cassie Lang. She's probably the best character in the movie. I like the police chief dad, and he goes through kind of a character arc, but then by the end of it, in the second movie, in Ant-Man and the Wasp, they don't really go anywhere with that character and that character change of heart in this film, which is kind of disappointing to me. But, you know, it's whatever. It's fine. It's a good movie, and I enjoy it. Then we have Doctor Strange. This is one I haven't talked about. So Doctor Strange, I know a lot of people, I've met more and more huge fans of this movie and just huge, defenders of this movie. And the more and more I've watched it, I thought it was fun when I first watched it, and I really enjoyed it. That was when I was first getting back into the Marvel movies, and superhero movies in general. Civil War got me back on that train, and I saw this movie over 2 years ago, and it was getting me back into superhero movies. And I really enjoyed it, and I've seen it many times since then, and I actually think it's probably one of my more favorite MCU movies, more towards, like, the better side of them. Like I say, a lot of these ones on this list are just kind of mediocre, except for select few. Like, this one I love. Like, I really enjoy this movie. Like, characters like the Mads Mikkelsen villain, I feel bad for Mads Mikkelsen for not getting a better role, but he's fine, he's passable. There's some good humor that they present with that. The humor, I think, is actually pretty good in this movie. It uses, I guess, more pop culture stuff, like, when he's talking to Wong, and he's like Gazelle Wong. It's kind of a weird joke, but there's some more good humor, especially with the Cape, who's my mom's favorite character in the entire MCU, which I can kind of understand. Speaking of which, how did the Cape dust in Infinity War? I don't know how that worked. They've never really clarified that, but, you know, Doctor Strange, it has a great supporting cast as well, like, the Ancient One, played by Tilda Swinton, a great character that I'm glad they brought back in Endgame, and just a really great character. One of the best scenes in the movie is when she's looking out into time and just seeing the lightning or just time, like, slowing around her as she's about to die. She talks about how she could never see past her own death, which she kind of can, I think, in Endgame, which doesn't make any sense, but, like, that's another movie. Doctor Strange is awesome. Like, it's one of, I think, my more favored MCU movies. It's, like, I think it's when you get out of the fun but mediocre movies into the really, really good movies. And this is one of those for me. Like, also Amy Adams, I know a lot of people are... No, not Amy Adams. What's her name? Rachel McAdams is his girlfriend type character. I know a lot of people don't like her. I think she's actually pretty good, and They get some good emotional scenes with her, and I think that people accuse Doctor Strange in his first film of being bland and being kind of like a ripoff of Tony Stark. I think they do an equally good job of doing the kind of rich boy, snarky, like, jerk person and becoming a hero in an equally interesting way to that of Tony Stark in the first Iron Man film. Not as good, but in an almost equally interesting way. Very great visuals in this movie. I just really enjoy Doctor Strange, and it's one of my... It's definitely, like, over time, the more and more I've watched it, it's really grown on me over time, and it's pretty memorable to me. That's the thing about it, is it's not one of the best. I don't think I do really, really enjoy it. It's not I don't think it's in my top 5, but it might be like 7. It's pretty high, I think, on my list, and I'm not gonna rank them, by the way, but I think that might be where it's around on my list. It's just a really good movie to me, and it's memorable. That's the thing with the mediocre to okay ones, is they don't really stick with me. This one sticks with me, which I think is really good. So yeah, that's pretty much it on Doctor Strange. Then we're going to be talking about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Now, I've seen this movie many times, and I like this one a lot more than the first one. Now, I know there's a lot of YouTubers that I really love who don't like this movie, and I completely respect their opinion, but the first half is just really fun, and I think just embodies what these characters were in the first one and makes them more fun, and all the characters, you know, like rewatching it, there are some moments where I think the characters act a little bit too snarky and mean, and some of the moments still do bother me, but a lot of them actually lead to something and lead to really good redemption arcs. Like Rocket has one of the best arcs in the movie, learning to care. It's so beautiful, and the final act of this movie with all the messaging and themes it presents is beautiful, and I love Volume 2. I think it's in my top 5 MCU movies, if I'm not mistaken. I'm trying to think of my top 5. Infinity War, The First Avengers, Spider-Man Homecoming, Winter Soldier, I believe. No, not Winter Soldier. Actually, I think First Avenger, Winter Soldier, I think are in there. And then this one. So, yeah, that's my top 5, I believe. So, yeah, and Spider-Man Homecoming, is that 6? I don't know. I think I just counted wrong. But, never mind. But, yeah, I really love Volume 2. It's one of my favorite MCU movies, and it's one of those ones where it's just gotten better and better with time to me. Some people, I understand, it's gotten worse for them over time. Like, one of my favorite channels, Sean Chandler, talks about, over time he's liked it less and less. With me, it just gets better and better over time. And the first half isn't really anything special, but it's just so much fun and embodies these characters in, I think, an even better way than the first one. And the villain is very good with Kurt Russell as Ego, and then just moving into the final act with all that, just heartbreaking stuff of, Peter Quill, kind of letting into his anger, and then in the end, his father saying, "If you do this, you'll be just like everyone else. What's so wrong with that?" It's just amazing stuff they present in Volume 2, and I love it so much. And then, after Volume 2, we have Thor Ragnarok. Now, this is one that I really enjoyed when I first watched it, and then I watched the first Thor, which refreshed my opinion. I watched that movie pretty close after I watched Ragnarok, and I think Ragnarok is the best Thor movie. But over time, it's just kind of gotten to the point where I really, really enjoy it, and it's in the really good category for me, and not the forgettable, because I've seen it many times. But I think it's one of those movies where it's so much fun, but when you've watched it so many times, it loses that comedic flair that it has the first time. So I've watched it many times, and it's a fun watch every time, but sometimes I haven't spread out my viewings of it enough, and it just gets boring to me. So I don't think it's a very rewatchable MCU movie, but for the first few times you watch it, it has such a great comedic spark, and is the tone that the Thor movies really needed. The emotions, I don't think, are undercut by humor as much as other people say. But yeah, I really enjoy Thor Ragnarok. It's just not one of my favorites. It's really good. I just think, they really knocked themselves out of the park with the portrayal of Thor in Infinity War. And Endgame has a really good idea for Thor, but doesn't execute it the best way, in my opinion. But, you know, Thor Ragnarok, I really enjoyed. It's just not the best. And then I'm going to give my updated thoughts on some MCU movies that I've talked about before, but I haven't talked about in a while. Starting with Black Panther. Now, obviously I'm not a black person, so I'm not trying to sound racist at all, but, I know that this had a really, good impact upon the black community, and a lot of black people just really felt this movie. And the first time I saw it, I thought it was a fantastic film. I was like, this has to be one of the best superhero movies ever made. I thought more about it. It's not amazing. The visual effects in the final battle aren't great. Killmonger's character, which I loved the first time, has gone a little bit down for me, in terms of character. Maybe I just get bored of watching him, but he's still one of my favorite MCU villains. He's kind of gone down a little bit for me, but he's still a really good character. And, it can be a little boring. I think that's just the time that I've spent so many times watching it. It's similar to Thor Ragnarok, except it's not like it loses its comedic flair. Some of the comedy isn't as good. It's kind of on Doctor Strange level, where some of the comedy is really good, and then there's some weird jokes in there, but there is some really good humor in the movie. And, Black Panther, it's a really solid movie, and I really enjoy it. It's just, over time, it's gone down for me. It's not, sorry about that. But, it's gone down a little bit for me, and I don't love it as much as I initially did. But I still really, really enjoy Black Panther, and it's one of the most impactful movies, and I am very thankful for the impact that it's had on so many people. The amazing score by, what's his name? Oh, shoot, I'm sorry, what's his name? Not Michael Giacchino. I forget his name. Dang, what's the guy's name? I'm really sorry. I forget the name of the man who composed the score for Black Panther, but it's a fantastic score. I'll give the guy, I'll show the guy's name in the pinned comment of this video or in the description of the video. But yeah, Black Panther is a great movie, but it's gone down a little bit for me. I don't enjoy it as much as I initially did. Then we're going to go into Ant-Man and the Wasp, my updated thoughts on Ant-Man and the Wasp. I think I like it more than the first Ant-Man. I can rewatch it more, and it's one of the most rewatchable MCU movies, similar to something like Spider-Man Homecoming. I think I like it a little bit more than the first Ant-Man. I know a lot of people don't, but I think it's just gotten better for me on rewatches. There's some really, very big plot contrivances, such as just Janet coming back, healing Ghost instantly, and then in Endgame, Scott Lang getting out of the quantum realm 5 years later, where it's only been 5 hours for him. And then in the first Ant-Man, they set the rules for the quantum realm that they apply to in Endgame, but in Ant-Man and the Wasp, they say that time operates differently in the first Ant-Man, and they say the same thing in Endgame. But for Janet Van Dyne, it's been 30 years inside of the quantum realm. But when Scott gets out of the quantum realm, when it's been 5 years, it's only been 5 hours. What's with the inconsistency? It's bad writing, I think. Or very sloppy writing. But, it's fine. There's things like that are excusable. There's some weird things in the plot. There's some weird things, and it's not really an exciting movie to me. It's got some pretty good music as well. One of my favorite, tracks from the MCU, Anthropody, is in this movie. So I really enjoy it. It's not, I think, the greatest. It's not the greatest in ambitions or themes. Its goal is to entertain you, and it does a really good job of entertaining me. It's a small-scale adventure with the character of Ant-Man, which I think is all you need out of an Ant-Man movie, and I think it improves upon the first one in many ways. But anyway, this video is getting on pretty long, so wrapping it up, this is just a video where I discuss the MCU movies that I have not discussed in the past. So yeah, that's for all of you. Maybe I talked too fast in this video, but to all of you who wanted to hear that, or hear my thoughts, and I know a lot of people wanted to hear my thoughts on Doctor Strange, so you've gotten that now, and you've gotten my updated thoughts on some past movies. So there are my thoughts on some of the MCU movies I haven't talked about, and some that I just haven't talked about in a while, or giving my updated opinion on. So now I've talked about them all, so I don't have to do the reviews anymore. No offense to the MCU, but there's so many of these movies, now I've talked about all of them. So, there you go. Thank you all for supporting the channel, and my next video, I'm going to work on a project. I don't know if it's going to be my next video necessarily. I don't have a lot of video ideas. I want to make a stop motion from Far From Home, but that's going to take a while because my phone's being weird. But I have a project that I'm working on, which I think is going to be ranking every version of the Avengers theme that has ever been released by Alan Silvestri. But anyway, please let me know all your thoughts on these movies, and let me know all your thoughts on the video in the comments as well. And as always, I hope you guys have a great day. Take care.